Mr. Chairman, and I thank the witnesses for your testimony here today, and I've had the privilege of hearing from each of you on other occasions as well, so I respect the level of expertise that you bring to this panel. I think there are a lot of things being discussed here today that really aren't relevant to the big picture. And if you start out with a flawed premise, the smartest people are going to end up with a wrong conclusion. So I want to first concede this point that except for certain felons or those mysterious combinations of 3 misdemeanors, those are the exceptions in the bill for those that are unlawfully present in the United States. And the bill essentially automatically says all of you that are here now, with those exceptions, and those who came before December 31st of 2011 are hereby legal, as I read the bill. And then it also says that if you were deported in the past and you're not guilty of a felony or these 3 mysterious misdemeanors, then it's an invitation to come back, apply to come back to the United States after the bill might be passed. And as far as I can see, there's no prospect that people that haven't committed felonies or people that haven't committed those 3 serious or mysterious misdemeanors, there's no prospect that those that came here after December 31st, 2011, or might come here in the future, would be either deported. And so I've called this the Always Is, Always Was, and Always Will Be Amnesty Act, in that if you is in America illegally, you get amnesty and you get to stay. If you was in America and were deported, you get to come back. And if you will be in America, there's no prospect you'll be deported and you get to stay. The Always Is, Always Was, and Always Will Be Amnesty Act. This is the largest and most expansive amnesty act that ever got any traction in the history of the United States of America. And for me, it's breathtaking to see how a nation could go through a law enforcement whiplash like we have seen since November 6th. And so I was very surprised after paid great attention to the presidential race, probably longer and harder than anybody else in this room, that somehow some guru woke up on the morning of November 7th and concluded that Mitt Romney would be president-elect on that day if he just hadn't uttered a couple of words, self-deport. That was astonishing to me, and even more astonishing was the logical disconnect of many of the people within my own party who seemed to leap to this conclusion that that was the right assumption. And so I dialed this back in my memory, and I think, yes, I do remember 1986. And we know that that number started out less than 1 million, and the lowest number that I can see out there of those that actually were legalized in that Amnesty Act were about 2.7 or 8 million. Many of those numbers go to 3 or 3.5 million. We also see numbers that show that the family reunification that resulted from that was something in the order of at least 5 to 1. So 5 times 3 is 15. That would mean there are something like 15 million people in this country, not discounting deaths and those that might have gone back, that were the beneficiaries of the 1986 Amnesty Act. So I'd just pose this question. Does anybody think that Barack Obama would be president today if the 1986 Amnesty Act had not become law? And I'd turn first to Mr. Aguilar, because he had the most confused look on his face.
Yes, sir. Frankly, I have to tell you, I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Okay, thanks. Because the clock is ticking, and so I'll just make this point, because it's more than rhetorical. I will tell you that I don't believe Barack Obama would be president today if Ronald Reagan hadn't made the most colossal mistake of his career in signing the 1986 Amnesty Act. He let me down that day. And now I have people that are concluding that if we can just pass an amnesty bill today and send it to a Democrat president's desk who lectured us in February and said, I'm trying to help you, Republicans. You'll never win another national election if you don't pass some kind of comprehensive immigration reform, which we do concede, I think, is a euphemism for amnesty. And yet, the beneficiary of that's Barack Obama. Now, why would we think we would get less of the same if we did more of what we did in 1986? And I'd point out also, when I hear the discussion about we have to do this because of the labor force that's out there, and we need to have more than 50,000 workers in this category of that because we think the market demands that. Milton Friedman said you cannot coexist with an open borders policy and a cradle-to-grave welfare state. And we are a cradle-to-grave welfare state. It is a wealth transfer. This is a class leveler. This is the kind of thing that's driven by a socialist agenda to take from the people that have and give to the people that have not and transfer this wealth. 100 million Americans in this country are not in the workforce. 100 million. And we're talking about bringing in a number that they're not going to limit this to 11.3 million or any other number like that. The amendment was offered in the Senate at 33 million and rejected. So we know this is bigger than 11 million people. This is a transformative economic rule of law and cultural change. It destroys the rule of law with regard to immigration. You can never again restore immigration law enforcement if you pass anything that looks like this Amnesty Act. I think it transforms America forever, and I think the people that are advocating for this have just simply started with completely the wrong premise that's not supported by any kind of data that's out there, and they're not willing to debate that. They want to talk around the edges. I think we need to get to the core of this problem and define how America became great, and how we restore the pillars of American exceptionalism. Thank you, and I yield back.